I told you, you are my spirit animal. Fella, I love that meme, and don't I feel it today? What is happening? Well, let me give you a quick primer, very quick primer. Comicsgate started in around 2017-ish, or at least proto Comicsgate, whatever, a little bit before that. Primarily as critiquing American superhero comics, big two, Marvel and DC. They said, instead of telling stories, adventure stories, comic book stories, creators in those companies were at that time now and still to this day viewing comics as a platform, a train to which we can drive our social issues out there to the people. And before anyone says, wait, comics have always been political. No, well, not like now. Not like now in terms of the amount of it, the story, the kinds of politics, and most importantly, sales used to come first. And we know through the whole ESG thing and everything, not necessarily the case. But that's where Comicsgate said, big two, pretty much everyone at the time, you're doing it wrong. You're going down the wrong path. You're not seeing readers as your customers any longer. You're just seeing comic book stores as your customers. And if it ever gets into anyone's hands, it doesn't bother you. We would point out that there's these massive stacks, thick stacks on the shelves. Didn't seem to matter. The numbers didn't matter anymore. All the characters are reimagined and rebooted into oblivion to the point where we don't even recognize them anymore. And, and sales that used to mean cancellation are now touted as massive successes. Every character is gay. That used to be a joke, remember? Every character is going to be gay. I mean, no one's laughing anymore. Every character is race swapped, and all because they don't view these characters as characters. They don't view these stories as stories. It's all a platform. It's all pamphleteering. It's all agitprop. So yeah, it's like, but to me, most importantly, the thread is lost. The thread of that character, whatever it was, going back, when people talk about manga, why is manga so important? I don't read manga, but people who do read manga tell me, like, the manga that they like, they love these stories. They're so into it. And they love the fact that there's a continual thread from chapter 1 onwards. It's a story. A lot of them finish, and they're self-contained, and they're done. They're not necessarily bringing these back. Like, let's keep this thing going for another 150 years. See how much we can milk this. And, even when I was a kid in the early 90s, and I first got into comics, Spider-Man had been around for over 30 years at that point. And, his story going like that, but it was more or less intact. You could draw a straight line from where he was in the early 90s all the way back to him being a teenager getting bitten by a spider. These characters used to have a unique identity. Now those identities are destroyed. They don't even matter. And what matters is the identity du jour of the creators. That's what's paramount. And we know that we know those identities flip in and out of existence. It could be one thing one week, another thing the next week, depending on whatever the flavor of the month is. But I'm thinking when my son turns 11, he's not going to be reading any of this stuff. First of all, is any of it going to be available, new stuff? And also, he won't be reading it because his friends won't be reading it. That's why I got into comics. All my friends are reading comics. But we've lost 2 generations now of American kids reading superhero comic books. And this is all despite the MCU and the DC movies and everything. Despite all that, young kids aren't reading American superhero comics anymore. So anyway, that was the primer. Comicsgate tried to warn the industry. They didn't listen. Instead, what did they do? They didn't want to engage in any of the arguments. So they just say, well, don't even listen to these people. They're bigots. They only think these things, not because they're fans, just because they hate losing their power. I'm a massively powerful person. The reader out there who enjoyed Peter Parker as he was, Batman as a detective who fought crime and not a sullen soy boy who pined and moped over Selena Kyle all day. Those people, massively powerful. No, they called us bigots, racist, homophobes, sex, whatever. Doesn't matter. So we said, okay. Well, in Comicsgate, we said, okay, well, we're going to just go off and do our own thing. We'll start our own side industry, and we've been doing, I think, incredibly well, considering a lot of us are just guys, doing it in our houses, making, doing fulfillment off our kitchen tables and stuff like that. Millions of dollars raised, thousands and thousands of books sold. I think we're off to a cracking start, as we would say here in Australia. But that doesn't mean we can't occasionally look back and laugh at what is going on in the industry that we once loved, and more importantly, crow. It is very important when your enemies are proven wrong to stand over them and lord over them. Comicsgate was right, and finally we have the proof. Now, I've had long discussions about this, arguments I should say, on Twitter with people. I would love to find those people now and just shove this in their fat faces. What am I talking about? I'm talking, of course, about this, which just came out by the great Robert Romano over there on comicsgate.org. He is citing Grand View Research. Now, I'm not super familiar with what Grand View Research is. Should I click this link? Probably should. Oh, there you go. The world's largest and most trusted BI enabled. BI enabled. They're very inclusive, BI-enabled market research database. They look very trustworthy. But here is this is comicsgate.org. This is Robert Romano's report. Superhero comic and graphic novel unit sales crashed 16.7 million. That's unit sales in 2021. Manga up 29.9 million in unit sales to 70% of market share. Grand View Research reports. Now, we will all be aware by now of this data, the Comicron data. Look, showing all this amazing growth in comics. I did a video on it the other day. Here's Eric July hitting back with a very important point. There are no unit sales in that report. Yes, that's it. And this is the kind of people that we all, run in against, that saying everything's, they're the dog sitting in the fire saying, this is fine, everything's fine, even though all of the page rates are dropping precipitously, and we're having to do GoFundMes to pay our rent. Everything's cool in American comics. No worries, mate. A lot of us have been pointing out for many, many years now that no. In fact, not. I won't read through this entire article, but we can check out the stats here. You can head to this article. I'll put a link in there as well. But essentially, the story is as we've been saying, as we've been arguing, Japanese manga sale. So like English translated mangas that they bring over from Japan. There are some big popular American mangas as well. Are doing incredibly well. Kids are reading them. Kids are loving them. Scholastic, bookstores. They're getting these things outside of local comic book shops, which another indicator Comicsgate was right. When I first started listening to your boy Zach, I think there were over 2,500 local comic book shops in the States alone. I think there's less than 1,500 now, 4 years later. This is not a booming marketplace, a booming opportunity. That people are buying in bookstores, they're buying online, they're buying from Amazon. And, I applaud the local comic book shops that can, shops that can continue on and grow. I think less and less they're selling monthly periodical American comics. This is a really great article here from Robert. He goes into the stats and numbers from this BI-enabled Grand View Research company. Essentially everything we've been saying. We're right, you're wrong, suck it. Love it. Oh, I love lauding. I love crowing and I love lauding. It feels so right. And here's that tweet from Eric July as well. He even what's this breakdown here? So this is the breakdown of US comic book and graphic novel market genre share. 70% manga, 17.7% superheroes. Is an excellent point. Just a few, where is it? Just a few years ago, it says it somewhere in the article, this 17% was at 45. Just a couple of years ago. This is the precipitous decline, because these characters, they've ruined the ones that were popular, and the new ones that they've introduced are dog shit, and no one likes them, and no one buys them. They may get Netflix TV shows, they may get movies, but they're not selling comic books. They never have. That's why they've all been rebooted 100 times, just because they're trying to push this so hard. I especially appreciated the inclusion of my animation. Still got a bunch of animations. I need to do more of these. My God, they just they take so much time. But this was my first one that I did, and it was Cecil and Ethan, and mostly Cecil, talking about how the comic book industry just dropped the ball on the biggest ever potential marketing opportunity in the history of comic books with the MCU. Like massive movie run, billions and billions of dollars. Like for the first, what did you say? For the first time, people know who Hawkeye was. People are coming in looking for Iron Man books, Thor books, and they're finding nothing. They're finding female Thor. They're finding Kate Bishop. They're finding Riri Williams. So it is glorious to be proven right in the numbers. They're not going to care. It's not going to matter. They're just going to move the goalposts yet again. They'll say, you always know when the side has lost the argument when they start saying, "Why do you care? Why do you care? Just let them do what they're doing." That's when you know you've won, and that's what's going to happen now. We'll start sharing this out whenever people start getting uppity about how comic books are booming. Comics are going better than ever, best that they've been in decades. We'll show them this, and they'll say, "Why do you even care? Comics are comics. What does it matter?" As the 80-year-old American superhero industry is left a husk, a termite hill, infested by termites. Nothing left for it. So yeah, well done, Robert. That was an excellent article. What does this mean for us? What does it mean for us? Indeed. Well, it means more for us in comicsgate, not even in comicsgate, in independent comics as a whole. The more that the American superhero comic book industry, the mainstream industry, and to a lesser extent the bigger indie publishers, the more they scare people off and just drive people off with their awful books, the more potentially for us. So it's super important for us right now to step up to the plate, because there's lots of people. If Ripper has shown us everything, there are lots of people out there who are still very much interested in reading and supporting this kind of material. But we have to be the ones to step up to the plate now. Yeah, but each reader who abandons the mainstream is potentially a new fan of ours. And what I'm about to say next might be the most controversial thing that I'll say, but mourn for the American superhero comic book industry if you must. My answer to that is, nothing goes on forever, and I don't think everything should. Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, all of them, they had their time. They had their time in comic books. It looks like their time in movies might also be coming to an end. It's going to take a while, but they had a great run. Might be time to let them go and move on to something new. People are always asking, how are we going to get more kids into comics? Maybe we need new stuff like manga's doing. New heroes, new stories. That's what we're doing here in Comicsgate. We're starting small, but we pack a punch, and we punch way above our weight. Speaking of, I'm involved. Please do sign up for the Lucent Painted Death comic. That's my own effort. in this great war to win back comics, win back sanity in comics. And yeah, please do sign up. It is shaping up to be an awesome book. That's it for the video. Like, subscribe, consider becoming a member, and I will see you later. All right, guys, that's it. Bye.